where this is going to go, but we've been talking about doing this kind of talk forever, right?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I think it could be beneficial for both people coming here from Christian cults and those of us who are here from Scientology and whatever lies in between. There's a lot of weird, kooky cults out there. But, I really don't like this climate of where it's like one cult picks on the other, which I've never experienced before. And I'm starting to feel it. And it's, I don't know, from my perspective, it's a little bizarre. I don't understand it. And yeah, I guess I have questions that you are qualified to answer.
Well, I guess I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there because Christianity and evangelicalism, Pentecostalism, all those terms, we can go through some of them, are very much their overlap, but they're also very fluid. So my definition and my perception of something could be completely different than someone else's, and their experience totally different. So we can kind of talk about some of the fundamentals of it, but also it's very different from, I think, from Scientology because you had source, and there's so many.
That sounds so funny.
Yeah, he kind of was like a god, but we have the Bible, but there's so many different interpretations. And then you talk about fundamentalism, which means they believe in the literal interpretation of everything in the Bible as much as they can,
Like the old gospel.
Yeah, the Old Testament. Right. There's the Old Testament, and then there's the New Testament, which we believed in, but we no longer throw stones at our rebellious children and kill them. You know what I mean? Things like that don't happen anymore. But it is very patriarchal. It's very the fundamental is kind of getting back to the foundation, right? So I was, without getting ahead of myself, I was raised in a kind of strict sort of fundamental background, but also charismatic, which brings the supernatural into it. So to me, it's a crazy mix of all of these oppressive rules. Don't go to dances, don't hold hands with boys, you can't listen to rock music, it's of the devil, everything's of the devil, of the devil. And then you've got all these things that like almost emulate some of the pagan practices, right? And like, the touch assist, like with Scientology, we had our own form of laying out of hands and touch assist. We have our own form of healing and supernatural powers. Things like not psychic, but prophecy, so it's funny how it does kind of almost emulate some of the other religions and some of the other beliefs.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I do think Pentecostals and the whole I have experienced this too. That's why I'm interested in talking to you about it. These aren't things that I've just read about. These are people I grew up with as my childhood friends. My oldest daughter, her father came from, it was like Church of Christ, but I still to this day don't know what exactly it was, but it was a little strange from what I remember. And Arizona is home to a lot of Mormons. Considering I grew up in Scientology, I grew up with a lot of different Christian belief systems, and I could never say that I was growing up in Scientology.
Right.
For my own survival, basically. If I wanted to be accepted back in the 80s to the early 2000s, you couldn't publicly say like, yeah, I'm growing up in Scientology, like this is great, because back then, oh my god, you would instantly be like a ridiculed, made fun of person, at least where I was growing up at. So it's interesting. I had to grow up lying and saying that I was being raised in a Catholic environment, even though I wasn't, so that I would be accepted into society and not looked at as a weird outcast. And I have experienced some of this persecution from some of these groups, even though I was a child, but now that I'm an adult, I'm like, there were some groups that were pretty hateful and very mean that weren't cool. And now reflecting on it as an adult, I feel like this is not the right way to go about doing things. because there could be someone like me out there, another little kid that grew.
Yeah.
Most of us grow up in public Scientology systems where, yeah, I was embarrassed as hell to talk about being raised in Scientology. And I just learned how to say, like, yeah, my family are Catholics because both of my parents were raised Roman Catholics. And it's a deep subject matter, but I'm starting to notice in this community there are groups of these very fundamentalist Christian sects that are not like not like Catholics or like, hey, the typical Christians that are nice and
Right.
be your
Right.
neighbor, but it's the kind where we're just like, they think everything that is different from them is just not okay. My daughter might run in here, but you know what I mean? It's like they make you
Yeah.
feel very horrible about yourself.
Yeah. Self-righteousness is definitely an earmark of somebody in a sect who believes that their group of thoughts and beliefs and values are over everyone else's. Yeah. That's I had that whole guilt thing and judgment. That was something that was always hanging over me, and I definitely threw that off. And I don't like to have people say things to me like as if they know my heart or my thoughts. That's something that I can't stand. Is like, that's okay if you have a relationship with God and all that and you go to I have no problem with Christianity. I have no problem with that. Like, and I always say, like, if the Lord is telling you what to do, that's fine. If the Lord is telling you to tell me what to do, that's when we have a problem. So it's like, don't tell me the Lord spoke to me and gave me a word that you need to do XYZ, because that's not okay. I think everybody has their own personal beliefs, and just that's that, right?
So and I know this sounds really stupid and I sound like a grade school person, but like my parents, I always have to disclose to people I'm not an atheist. I was never exposed to anything with the Bible, really. So it's not like in my mind I'm like, God is horrible and this is stupid. I've just never been exposed to it. So I really don't know. I see what my friends do, but Scientology beliefs, they really keep you away from it. And my parents were like that 100%. And so they wouldn't say anything bad. They're just like, you're not going to be allowed to read that. So I do feel like I really do have, maybe I'm a rarity, but I don't understand Christianity at all. It's not because I'm talking
Well,
bad about it, or I think
if you
it's not a
want me to
concept
just
I
give you
know.
I can give you a little capsulized version, but oh my God, there's so many different directions you can go with it. But so the Catholics, I don't know a lot about Catholicism. All I know is as much as I do in order to just differentiate it with Protestants, right? So you got Catholics who believe that they're the first church of Peter, of the apostle Saint Peter, and Jesus and the apostles and all that. The first apostolic church, they call it. So they believe that they were the true church, not in a cult like way, but this is our religion, right? Then I think it was the early 1500s, and guys, you can totally correct me, it's been a while, but
This is a lot
Martin
of stuff. Oh my goodness. I'm like,
Martin Luther. So I just try to give you a little bit of how we are today, where we got
where
to.
it's like L. Ron Hubbard, he sucks, and now it's David Miscavige and blah blah blah.
Yeah, so you kind of had a little bit of a change, because it was almost like a reformation, kind of like happened in Christianity, because now didn't he sort of squirrel things? Like when
I don't want to know. He was just a nut job. That's all I
yeah,
remember. No, when I think of L.
yeah,
Ron Hubbard, I don't think of any legacy things about him because I grew up
yeah.
having to listen to his weird crap from childhood. And to this day, I'm like, what did this guy say that was remotely phenomenal? I don't. Charles Manson to me makes more sense than L. Ron Hubbard, like the
Oh
old
God.
school. He does, like, at least he's talking about the environment and getting along. And what does L. Ron Hubbard say? It's not things like that. I don't know what
Yeah.
he says. That's the
Well, I
problem.
think I think the thing with Scientology is it's so elitist and kind of off, in one direction where it does get, especially in the Sea Org, very high control. And Christianity can be like that too. But I remember growing up, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of the things that my classmates were. Like I couldn't go to dances and I couldn't do a lot of things. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't, definitely not date boys and all that. But a lot of my friends were like, "Oh yeah, I'm Catholic," and they were sort of like normal. Like they didn't seem different than kids that weren't religious. They did things that the other kids did, and some of them even drank and smoked and swore and whatever. And then they just go to confession and then they just do it again, and they'd end up back in church on Sunday. But we had all these restrictions, and we were constantly being like condemned, like you're going to go to hell if Jesus is coming back any day. And it's a form of like control, but it's also this doomsday thing hanging over your head all the time. Like
I
we were
can
controlled by fear,
I
you
can
know.
imagine, and I think that's what I'm trying to get down to the point of with this is I'm noticing, and it's not like I'm just this savant that's like, oh, the evangelicals. This is in American culture. Christian fundamentalists, evangelicals, they're everywhere, man. I get converted at least, or tried to be converted once a week by them. So they're just a part of the fabric of our society. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand, like, I don't know, like they just do. It's like one thing because of how you describe Catholics, they're kind of low key and this and that, but the ones that are very, you have to be healed and saved and other things like the speaking in tongues. And that's when I'm
Yeah.
like, do we really have to do all of that stuff? I don't know. I know they sound like
Yeah.
funny questions, but I'm like, what is that?
Yeah, no, okay.
It's
So
fascinating
I
to me.
did I did have a little bit of a visual I can show you, and maybe it would kind of break it down a little bit to it's a lot. It's a lot. But if you think of just the basics of, let's see, share screen. Um, okay. Can you see that okay? So it says, and I got this from AI, but it made sense to me, kind of broke it down. So we're talking about religion, we're talking about church. Church is considered the most mainstream, often with a large membership and well-defined hierarchy. So then you got the denominations, what kind of breaks it down into, like, there's Christianity and there's churches. Then there's denominations, is a subgroup within a larger religion sharing core beliefs but with distinct practices and interpretations. So that's when you're kind of branching off, from Christian. I think that even like Catholics and Protestants consider themselves Christians. Then they have the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches, and now they have denominations, which is things like Methodists and Lutherans and Pentecostals and all that. Then you have the sects, SECT, which was what Door of Hope, my cult, started out as, and then turned into a full-blown cult. It says, a sect is a smaller group that usually broke away from a larger church, often with a more intense commitment to religious practice and a stricter interpretation of beliefs. And that's when you get things like the fundamental Baptists, you get the fundamental Protestant churches, the really fringe, Jonestown type churches, which mine was kind of going there in a way. And then you have
Yeah.
cults, a group with potentially extreme beliefs and practices, often centered around a single leader and often viewed as an outside the mainstream. So that's kind of in a nutshell, like the breakdown of it. But when you have denominations and different sects, that's kind of what I came out of with Pentecostalism. They believed the basic idea of, there's something called the Apostles' Creed, which Catholics and Protestants all recite. A lot of them recite, not all churches, but it's like the basics of, like, you believe in the Trinity, you believe in Jesus Christ, you believe in God, you believe in, the virgin birth, and you believe that you're, in heaven and all that, right? Where Christians kind of take it a little bit further is this thing of being born again. And It used to be interchangeable with being evangelical, but now not all, not all even, we talked about this the other day, not all evangelicals claim that they're born again. Not all born agains claim they're, it's a whole weird, kind of mishmash. Now, Pentecostals believe primarily in all of those other things, but they also believe in the gifts of the Spirit. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, so there's the gifts of the Holy Ghost, right? Or
Sort of.
the Spirit, right? You're baptized in the
I hate
Spirit,
saying
and
that
one
because
of
it sounds funny, but
the Holy Ghost, yeah. One thing, well, one distinction of being Pentecostal is an outward. They call it outward manifestation of an inward baptism. Is the speaking in tongues, and originally in the Bible, it was not meant to be just where nobody can understand you. It was actually you actually knew all of a sudden a language that other people could understand in their native tongue. It was like a real language. That's not how it is now. It's more like open your mouth and just blah, 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 babble,
But do people really feel that? Because I told you I went to a Donnie Swaggart convention, and it was crazy. I went deliberately for the speaking in tongues thing, and there were like 200 of them at least. And I went in the middle just to be like, I have to experience this. And it was crazy. I mean, it was a small church right by me, maybe 3 blocks away from me.
Wow.
And he spoke for free. Because I'm like, how often do I get a chance to see a Swaggart for free? 3 blocks, like, because they're legendary televangelists. Like, I grew up with them.
If Jeff's in the chat, she can tell you a lot about them.
It was
her uncle worked
it
for
was
them.
fascinating though, because he does his whole like bringing on like former alcoholics and this and that, and he does his blues like piano thing, and then just the whole, I think he's Jerry Lee Lewis's cousin. Something.
Yes. Jimmy Swaggart was Jerry Lee Lewis's. Now Donnie, is he his son, brother? Who is
He's
he?
the son.
Son. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny because they have a strong lineage throughout American like music and everything. If you didn't realize that, and it was so weird going there though. The speaking in tongues thing, I just can't understand. I'm like, where are they going in their minds to get this?
Yeah, you saw that stream that I did about the Ramp Church, and that woman was, in that whole circle of going around like being like a traveling preacher and singer, and she would quote minister with Jimmy Swaggart and his group, and the Gaither trio, the Gaither, I forgot what it's called, Bill Gaither and his family. And then there was like Benny Hinn, and was the other wacko. I remember the other one. There's so many of them. So there's so many of them. But that was the whole health and wealth movement. Oh my God. When I was a kid and a teenager, there was this whole thing about like if you like having faith healings and having like the health and wealth, like name it and claim it. If you wanted to be rich, you would just say, I'm going to have that. And you would just pray and claim it, and God would bring it to you. But the thing is you were watching these fucking
Does it really happen though? Sometimes, like,
I mean, I'm not knocking anyone's experience.
That's why it's like, I'm like, does this really happen? Are there people that can say, yes, this really happened to me? Like, that's why I'm like, if there's one person, but I think
because I've seen some things that I think are definitely fake. And then, hey, I feel like, who am I to tell somebody they didn't get healed? Or who am I to tell someone? Like, I've actually had feedback from at least 3 people, one ex Ramp member, actually 2 that I've heard of, and then 2 people that are still in that Ramp church. They call it a church, they don't call it a cult. And they're like, can you give me more information? Because I really felt God there. And even someone that left there said he's not a Christian anymore at all. But he said, I did feel something, and I even felt accepted, because they have they're I can't remember exactly what they said, but basically they felt accepted for things that they were told that were sins, but they really weren't, you know? So I think maybe they were homosexual. I can't remember what the story was, but it was that. It was like they felt accepted, even though they knew it was, quote, looked bad upon from the church. So who am I to say that they didn't have a spiritual experience? You know, that God didn't, or the universe or spirit guide or something didn't touch them in that congregation, you know? But I have seen a lot of whacked out shit.
You know, like I just like I was saying earlier, I'm like I just don't think you get enough I shouldn't say credentials, but right, like to be able to juggle Scientology and I don't know, you've got Pentecostal stuff and know what they both mean, and you do a pretty good job of it. Like that has to be very stressful because I don't know what you know about with all the Pentecostal evangelical cults. I just know I've dealt with them like growing up, and Scientology is crazy at it in itself. So, yeah, for you to be able to do that like at the same time and sort of remain even halfway unification between us, you do like it's that takes talent with what you do.
Thank you. I don't know. I just kind of wing it. It's like there are so many similarities, but there's also differences. But it really fascinates me, you know, looking at Scientology versus Pentecostalism and all the other different, you know, sects and religion and all that, SECT and religions and all that, and realize that um, there are so many similarities. And I'm really, I'm always fascinated with the whole human behavior of it all and what makes us tick. And I don't know, maybe I should have gone into psychology because it really fascinates me. So yeah, I like to talk about it all. Oh my God, I just saw something. Have you heard of this? Adam says, holy laughter is a million times weirder than speaking in tongues. Holy shit. Yeah. Have you heard of the Toronto blessing?
I haven't, no.
So Toronto blessing was, I don't know, I guess there were others too, but there was this revival, I believe it was maybe in the 90s, and these people would just come from all over to this church in Toronto, and they would just laugh hysterically for hours. And they would be, you know how like Benny Hinn would like knock people down and stuff? They would be like looking like they're having seizures, and they'd be laughing hysterically for hours. It was so weird.
I don't know what it is. I think they say there's been studies, whatever it is, like the power of suggestion, or I don't know. I never got like I would watch Benny Hinn because I thought he was funny and what he did. You know, I was like a teenager, and that's what I mean too. Is like what I want to get at is that someone growing up in Scientology. I would watch Benny Hinn and Jimmy Swaggart and kind of be like, "Oh my god, these people are hilarious." And as a kid growing up, even though I knew Scientology was crazy, but I would watch that and I'd be like, "That's kind of crazier than Scientology," because we don't really have emotions and act crazy, but those, televangelists do. So it was very like entertaining and like, wow,
Yeah.
and I think what I'm noticing now is I don't know. It's almost like we're turning into mockery for each other, like where I think they're funny and they think we're funny to make fun of. And in my mind, is this really healthy for us to be making fun of each other and ripping into each other? Like we both realize our belief systems are screwed up.
Right.
And so some of it is like fixating like their attention on us, which we don't do that to them. We don't do it to the born again fundamentalist thing but
Mhm.
it's like they do it to us. And I honestly think it's because they think we're satanic and we're bad, we're evil. And I think that's part of their like beliefs, isn't it? Not being judgmental, but like they
Yeah.
do. They're
Well,
not supposed to be reading like Scientology stuff, but they do
yeah.
it anyways.
He, there's definitely a divide of like those who are saved and unsaved, and the whole like evangelical, the word you know, evangelism means the gospel or the good news, right? You're supposed to be spreading the good news of Jesus Christ to the world. Now to look at people and say, well, and the Jehovah Witnesses do this, terribly, where if like almost like pitying you, like you're going to end up missing, like you're not going to get in the new heaven, you're going to be destroyed in Armageddon, and that's what I was taught too, very similar to the JWs. So it was almost like looking on people like, oh, you're so deceived, or oh, there's worldly people, like we used that too. So if somebody had this kind of self-righteous attitude and was looking at like Scientology and saying, oh, they're very lost, I think we're all lost to a degree, and I don't know, I think maybe there's many ways to God. It says there's only one way in most Christian circles, but then there's very much evangelicals have been kind of opened up almost like a liberal connotation, and then there's the fundamentals who have sort of broken off from that whole evangelical thing. But when you hear on the news, they talk about the evangelical right and how they vote or whatever, I believe that they're putting together all of them, like they're talking about maybe even Catholics too, because they're talking about the Catholic vote is basically lumped in with evangelicals.
That's interesting, because I mean, I want to know how you find it in your heart, because I know you were raised to believe that probably Scientologists and gay people and different people, you were probably raised to believe like they're really bad. But I
Yeah.
get this sense from you where just from the beginning, you don't think that at all. So were you someone from childhood that always knew you were growing up in a crappy belief system? And like, I mean, I always knew from childhood, like Scientology is
Yeah.
crazy and I hate this, but man, I have no choice because I have to grow up in it. Like, you seemed sort of like you were the same way.
Yeah, there was so many times when I was just alone and kind of having to fend for myself, and also like depending on my own thoughts. And so when I was in the cult, that kind of got erased, but there was always something in me that was wanted to survive and also felt lucky to be alive, right? And so in meeting all different people, I never had that like us against them idea, because I knew that we're all here just trying to survive, and I always had this feeling of not measuring up in my family, in my religion, my adopted family. So I who am I to say that my idea of God is God? You know what I mean? And I knew people that in my class that were gay and other denominations, Catholic, they were all really nice people. And that was one of the things that kind of helped me get out of the cult when I was 36, was just seeing people that I worked with and people in the world, like they seem nicer than the people in the cult. And the thing with Scientology, I understand how easy it is to fall into a belief system that's just completely controlling and crazy. So I guess I have empathy. I'm definitely an empath, I think. Actually, Doug Kramer said I'm definitely an empath.
Well, no, I can tell you, like, I mean, I can tell you understand us, that's for sure. You're the first person I've met from a fundamentalist Christian background that I have felt I could relate to in some way. And I want to thank you for that too, because we haven't had too many that have tried to do it, but you're the first one that's been able to sort of break through the barrier. And even though you make some people mad, I guess, but I think in the end, we know, like, we know you're a good person, and I appreciate all your
Well,
educational
I
things
guess
you
it's a
give
case
me.
by case basis. Yeah, a lot of people don't like me. I mean, I know I can be a lot. I know I can be very blunt sometimes, but I, deep down, I know I care. I'm not perfect. I've made thousands of mistakes in this place, but I don't look at you. I mean, I used to say, oh, the second gens, but now it's like I kind of got away from that, because you're all different. You all grew up in Scientology, but you have different personalities, different, backgrounds in some ways, where there is a lot of overlap. But, Marisa, I just love you. You're such a good friend. You're always just so level-headed, and the way you look at things, I'm like, wow, I have never thought of it that way. And whenever you have a new video out, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta drop everything and
Well,
listen
no,
to it.
I feel the same way about you and your videos, and I think something people should understand is, and I say this all the time, Scientology is a really non-emotional belief system. So we are raised to not really have emotions and care about things. And what I do know about, I would say, I guess, evangelicals and stuff, like just the drama and crying all the time. You like it's so I'm like, oh my God, it's not that big of a deal. But then I know you guys think that we are probably weird for not thinking it's a big deal. And there's, I don't
Mhm.
know. It's interesting though, because I'm watching it because they're two polar opposite.
Yeah.
They're just the
No. Yeah, it's really funny because, like, you grew up with the training routines of bull baiting, and you had to suppress things. We were taught kind of to, um, exhibit, well, the joy of the Lord or healing. Like, it was almost like it was embarrassing sometimes. I almost wish I was more like Liz, because I was
it was
I
embarrassing.
wish I could be more poker faced about
No, we had to do that in Scientology, though, acting like hip hip hooray and acting like L. Ron Hubbard is amazing. And I would be like, this is so stupid in my mind. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing on earth. No one's ever heard of this man. And we're having to do salutes to him. So I would think that as like a child, but it's just, I hope that we all, if I'm not used to having a Christian fundamentalist or former evangelical speaking in tongues, I guess, demographic intertwined with us. And it's eye opening seeing all, like many of you, because you're people I grew up with, like Jehovah Witnesses, Mormons, evangelicals, born again Christians, and people from my childhood that I always, in my mind, is like, wow, that's kind of weird. They don't want anyone doing this or hanging out with them. But I feel it now because they're adults and they're joining this cult community for healing, but they're using us because we're the Satanist, weird Scientology kids. I guess we're easy to make fun of. But at my age, I'm 46, and most of us are 40 to 70 years old. I'm like, we shouldn't be doing this mean girl stuff with each other. And, like, oh, you guys are stupid because of the, like, we should have been doing that to each other back in like the 1980s when we were teenagers. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
I don't think anyone can judge someone's background. I mean, you didn't even choose to be in Scientology, and your parents, I'm sure, meant well. I mean, we're all kind of searching for meaning in life, and so everybody's everybody's journey is different. And I didn't. I don't think I'm trying to like really examine myself here. It's like I don't think that I came into this community with a fascination of like, oh my God, like these satanic whatever. It was more like I felt a draw to you all because I felt like I could understand a little bit of like the course of control that I went through was very in a lot of ways similar.
Well,
You know?
someone like you with what you've been through, and I have an idea of what you went through. Yeah, that's why I can honestly, what you have been through is hardcore. I can certify you as like a hardcore Pentecostal like upbringing. I know it because I've experienced it in another way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But that's why I love asking you questions because it's fascinating. Um,
Yeah, ask away.
I just I will never understand it in a million years. But me and you get along great, right? I mean, I love you like my sister, and we could talk about all
Mhm.
our weird stuff. Like, well, I believed in this, and you're.
Yeah.
So I just don't know why there is this weird thing of where it almost makes me feel like I'm still a sinner. Like the people that are kind of doing this and like poking fun of us, it's like they're persecuting us. And I
Mm.
can feel it. I went through it my whole lifetime, and I'm like, this is not healing. Like to jump on someone and be like, you did this wrong, now you must, and then repeating it 50,000 times that they're wrong and they have to apologize. It's just kind of weird to me, you know?
Yeah.
And you've been through it, and I go through it a little bit, although I think it's probably funnier than you do, because for you, I can imagine it being a trigger. Um,
Yeah, sometimes.
for me, it's not a trigger. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen." But I have to, like, read through it, and I don't understand all the hatred, judgment, and bigotry of if you are from a former Pentecostal or evangelical cult, whatever, we're supposed to be working on the same team. We're not supposed to be making fun of each other, you know? It's not like Olympics of, the UFO cult is more messed up than the Benny Hinn cult, because honestly, I think we're about equal.
Yeah.
We're about equal. So we can hopefully do things that are conducive and help each other, then be mean to each other. That's my message.
Mhm. Yeah, I like these comments from Adam. All the condemnation is like emotional overboarding. Like, yeah, the condemnation is something that just eats away at me, like feeling like I could never measure up. And I don't look at other religions as like, oh my God, look at them. They're terrible. Because like I said, I think we're all just searching for some, feeling of belonging and meaning, you know? And so we just gravitate towards what we gravitate towards. But I always felt bad that like there's people, including myself, including you, that were born into things that were kind of indoctrinated into what our parents wanted us to believe. And so I feel like I'm still finding myself. A lot of the things that I do, even on my channel, are just things that like I don't even know. I didn't even know how to act in the real world. I never really lived in the real world.
Well, the fact that you are able to go through that, and I know I could tell from the moment I saw you in the beginning to how you are now, um, you are a person that, and that's what sets you aside from other people, is you have been able to grow spiritually. And you started out maybe as like I don't know, conservative crocheting woman, but well, not that you're not. I'm not saying anything bad, but
No,
you're
I get
more
it. No, I totally know what you
like
mean.
you're more of like the middle head of like, okay, I can understand both things, and but now I'm crocheting things, maybe you know what I mean, the things you crochet that are funny. Um, but it's little things like that where I'm like, wow, you're actually finding things that are humorous and realizing how stupid it is to feel restricted and paranoid and neurotic. Like you're not allowed to be
Yeah,
yourself. And I've
yeah.
seen you go through a transformation of that. And honestly, you should be very proud of yourself because you still have good morals and values, but you're also able to preach educational things that help me and many people.
Well, I can totally say the same for you because you put things in this perspective for me so many times. And I'm like, yeah, I never thought of it that way. Like you just have a gift of kind of like stepping back, seeing the whole picture, and you're such a wealth of knowledge of like the foundational like things, the motivation behind how people act in Scientology. And I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense because you know the history of it and you've lived a lot of it. So I'm really proud of you because you are definitely like a straight shooter in this community. And I know a lot of people just feel like you're so refreshing because when you come out, it's just like bullseye. That's how I feel anyways. I
Oh,
just love
oh,
listening to you.
thank you. I mean, I think all of us need to just realize that we're here for a common cause and a common goal, and we all have a common message. And
Yeah.
regardless of what our physical or mental ailment is, we're all struggling from something, and to break it into factions where we're fighting with each other of like, my trauma is better than yours, or you have to apologize for your trauma. And it's just getting really strange for my taste, and I hope it can I just hope it can go away, but I know that it's up to me. I mean, I have to understand other people and what they're going through as well. It's tough though because Scientology is affiliated with evil things many times. Like the whole Satanist thing. I know because I grew up with it and it's hard. You can't really
Yeah.
break that social stigma about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I feel like I'm not cut out for this because I do wear my heart on my sleeve. I do get very emotive and I don't know, I can kind of push it to a certain um limit, but if someone goes over like I don't know that like if someone calls me names and stuff, that really bothers me. Like really. Like I've never experienced bull baiting and all that. So to be called, the dirt under someone's feet, I won't say certain things because then people are like, "Oh, I know this person called you that." But yeah, just the buttons. I have so many fucking buttons.
It takes a
It's
long
so
time
easy
to
to
get.
find my
I used
buttons.
to. No, I used to too. I hate calling them buttons, but just things that make you mad. And if you do this for a long time, you eventually get to a point where you just don't even care. Like nothing makes you
I
mad.
get
I know
more.
it sounds weird, but
Yeah.
that's my attitude. Is I don't go on Discord and Reddit because
Yeah.
why? I don't want to hear if 123 XYZ says I'm a bitch. I mean, what does that do in my mind? It's to me, I like confrontations that are head on. Like, I'm not going to mention his name, but our favorite friend,
Mhm.
he was the one that was like went on, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I'm actually having a battle with a person who I know who he is, even though, it was it wasn't like a
They run from you
victorious,
though. I mean, you
but it was funny because 'cause I'm like,
got
"Wow,
the
he's
trolls running
telling me who
scared.
he is." It's someone that I actually know that's like, "Yeah, Marisa, you're a blah, 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 and this is, his name, Tony D'Angelo." We all know he is, but it was like, wow, okay. It was awesome. But people that hide themselves, they're like, yeah, you're gonna fight me, and then I don't know who their name is, and they would never show up in Arizona on my front door. I'm like, this is so stupid even reading it. It does nothing. It doesn't scare me. It provides no intellectual brain like anything. Even destructive. I mean, when you look back on those messages now, you're probably like, why did I care what all those people using fake names think about me?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's something that helped me recently to realize that there's so many different things you can think of, like people that attack you, in some ways they're doing it for sport, like there's I don't know, have you heard of Dr. Grande? He has a video about internet trolls and he kind of like looks at the psychopathy of it all and just saying like a lot of these people are just kind of sitting at home like kind of feeling bad about themselves and they're sadistic and they like to inflict pain because it makes them feel better, and so when I think about that I'm like, okay, well, also I think that they're designed to they don't care if they get 8 views, they want you to see it and they want to fuck with your brain, and that's where I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna take the bait and you know go slumming in Reddit or whatever because then it'll just mess up my head, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are hurting nowadays with different, I don't know, whatever is going on. But I do feel a need of everyone is wanting to like project themselves. And I come from a multicultural, my dad was born in Mexico
Mhm.
and I don't want to get into to that stuff, but I understand the human struggle. And when I see people watching us from 5 nations away that are just like, oh yeah, stupid Americans, but then they get mad at us Americans when we point out like, well, you're watching an American channel. I don't understand it. Like it's just it's
Yeah.
just getting out of hand and it's stupid. And Streets is a much eloquent speaker than I am, but If those of you heard Street's message, you know who he's getting at when it comes to the people watching us in their RVs and for no other reason except they think it's a soap opera. And it's sad because they could be a huge vocal advocacy group for us. They could actually help us fight Scientology, but they're not interested in that. I think they're more interested in extramarital affairs that happened 3 years ago in different situations.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Marilyn. I don't have the answers, but it all intertwines. You know it does. They all intertwine, and I know why they're intertwining to do this.
You do?
I think so. Yeah, they're all a bunch of evangelicals, and they're obsessed with having sex and thinking about sex.
I did write that down. I was
Oh,
like,
sorry. Well,
shame. Oh, like, yeah.
no, you have to realize, like, I'm not like, okay, there's Catholics and Christians, and I always say the Catholics saved my life because my whole family everyone except my parents are Roman Catholic, and growing up in Scientology, Roman Catholics are the reason why I knew like what was happening in normal society versus what I was being raised in. Like I would go to my grandma's church and it was like a kaleidoscope of painted glass and cool.
Yeah.
The stuff you don't see in Scientology. There's nothing beautiful about Scientology at all. Nothing. Can you imagine going to a David Miscavige event? It's the dumbest thing. But
Yeah. Well, I could see, I mean, a little bit like when I saw those videos of the big, I don't know what you call them, big conventions or whatever, the big events that you had, where I don't know if you ever went to one, but looking at those like with the lights and billions and trillions and the music and the dancing and stuff, I was like, oh my God, this does remind me of some of those conventions that I went to where it was like a lot of bodies in one room and all the energy and working you up. Like I totally get that because that can be almost mistaken for a spiritual experience.
yeah, but you know what? It's like I didn't go to those events personally in Florida and LA, but I've been to many of them in the org. They put them on a huge satellite when you're in an org. I've seen almost every one of David Miscavige's events, but just watching it from a big screen TV at the Phoenix Org, like live while it's going on.
Did you get
And
like
I
a
was
contact high from that?
no, I always thought like this was so dumb because I knew I was growing up like okay, I was growing up in Scientology, but the other part of me that had to go to public schools, I'm like, this is not happening. Like nobody knows about this in my school. This is the dorkiest, ridiculous, most like that's what I mean. That's why I had to lie about growing up in Scientology. Could you imagine growing up in that shit? And somebody gets a hold of that David Miscavige footage at like the LA County Public School System or Maricopa school systems. Oh man, I would have been like the biggest ridiculed kid on the face of the earth. Not like I wasn't already, but yeah, it was a secret. And so all of that, it's really interesting, I think, like the way that you just describe it. And I remember the days of David Miscavige doing that because I was in high school. There was a huge push by Scientology to integrate it towards like his Nirvana and like Alice in Chains. That was a huge thing during that time. That's when I was a teenager, and the Church of Scientology was trying to push that through. It's like the CCHR is taking over. They're conquering Kurt Cobain and the psychiatric grunge movement. I grew up during that time. Yeah, it was really weird.
Now, were you ever pressured to okay, so we have this thing called witnessing where you were pressured to because you know, you're looking at all these lost people, right? Like all these people that are going to hell because you're not, but they are. Well, I thought I was too. And you were the whole like evangelical, like evangelizing is spreading the good news. So I felt like there's this there was this pressure of, we used to have these, we'd have to stand sometimes on the street corner and give out tracts with these little pamphlets, and they look like little comic books. But
I have a bunch of those.
you do? Chick
Yes,
tract?
I think so. Girl, I'm telling you, I'm the queen of convert. You do not know,
You've been
because
converted.
I am proud. Like, okay, listen, because when people ask me, like, what were you raised in? And I'm like, well, I was raised in Scientology, but that is every evangelist's whatever dream come true is someone like me. So
Yep.
probably 3 times a week I get converted with pamphlets and
Yeah,
weird
most of
things.
them have like a sinner's prayer. Like, that's how you're born again. You say the sinner's prayer. So you recognize that you're a sinner. You ask Jesus Christ to come into your heart, cleanse you of all your sins, and then you vow your devotion to Him. You're going to live, for Him, right? And so I have said the sinner's prayer, kind of like, I don't know, a lot of people have like done the billion-year contract a bunch of times. I know, I can't remember who, but like a bunch of Sea Org people were saying like, oh yeah, I signed it like when I was 8 and then 10 and 12 or whatever. I've said the sinner's prayer so many times. So when you were asking about like what age do people become born again, I was like, okay, well, I was born again at 9 and then 11 and then 16 and then 20.
Wow. Oh my.
I was baptized twice. I was baptized when I was 12 and then when I was 20.
But what is the religion you grew up in? Pentecostal?
Yeah, it was, well, more broadly Protestant, evangelical, Pentecostal, with all of the charismatic, because it was in the 70s. So it was that whole thing of the Benny Hinn and the PTL, Praise the Lord Network, with Tammy Faye and
Oh my goodness.
Baker. My parents
Well,
would, my mother would watch them all the time. And we knew
you have
somebody in the
my
chat said that, so one of their relatives gave $1,000 or something to Tammy Faye. Yeah. They were like one of the first major like networks, and they had I knew people that bought their timeshares, and it turns out they didn't have enough room for all the timeshares. It was a
I
scam.
remember that. I totally remember those days. Oh my God. Yeah, like Jimmy Swagger, Tammy Faye, and holy cow. And that's
My
amazing
mother
that
would,
you
I tell
came
you,
out to.
they ruined my teenagehood, because they would preach about like the purity and all this and being separate from the world. Meanwhile, they're taking everybody's money and building these, Christian Disneylands, and telling parents to be like really strict with their kids. And all of a sudden, it's brought out that, I mean, I'm not judging anybody that goes with prostitutes or whatever, whatever, but if you're telling people that you're so, pure as the driven snow and looking down at everybody else, and it turns out, I'm like, oh my God. And I said to my mother, I was like, this guy has told us how to live for 10 years. And now what? Oh, well, he's not perfect. And it's, love, like, yeah, it's just crazy. It's like, well, excusing it. Like,
How
really?
long did it take for you to kind of realize, what were you in your early 20s where you're like, this is absolutely crap? That's how I was at
I
Scientology, where
was
I finally was
16,
like, this is dumb. I've always known it's dumb, but this is my
yeah.
official, you are dumb. I think I was like 22.
Well, I got to that point when I was 16 and I ran away. And then I, went to a foster home. I kind of sowed my oats and all that. And then at one point I felt like my roots were kind of calling to me, because I like pretty much screwed up my life. And I went back home, and my parents were like, yeah, we want you to come stay with us, but we really want you to go to church. So by then they had gone off on the deep end and had gone to this sect, this Door of Hope place. And then it turned into a live-in ministry. And I ended up going there because I didn't feel, I don't know, I felt like I made a mess of my life. And I always had that underlying fear that I was going to go to hell. So one thing led to another, and I ended up living there, and I ended up getting married, and I ended up giving control of them. So I didn't break out till I was 36. And it was really because of my kids, because I didn't want them to be exposed to that shit anymore, because they started turning on my kids. Like, I can deal with a lot of stuff, but my kids are like my buttons. Like, don't fuck with my kids. I will mess with you. So that's kind of where I was at. I was like, this is crazy. So I once and for all, like, realized I'm 36, so I was old.
No, that's how I can tell with your story, the way you talk about it is like, I can tell your man, like just looking at you and stuff, I can tell you had a past like that, but the way you are now is like you're extremely different. And I'm not saying you're like, yeah, you're on the path of Scientology, heathenist, which I know some people think. But no, you're on a path of, I would say, redemption, or I don't know, understanding, where you're just getting all
Yeah.
your whole life. And when I look at somebody, if I was going to, experiment with, which I've tried experimenting with Christianity and trying to get involved in it. You are a role model of somebody that I would want to listen to, because you're non-judgmental. You lay it all out there and everything that you say. And I really respect that about you. It's hard for me because I try. I've been trying since I was like in my 20s. And, you know, it's like, I
Yeah, I
can't
think
force
maybe you and I
myself.
believe similar. Like, I don't know. I can't really put a label on it, but I do believe there's something out there. Like, I'm not completely an atheist, but I don't believe in all of this, very judgmental, kind of rules based, finite, you got to earn your salvation, whatever. And I feel like it's more like just trying to be a good person and boiling it down to having empathy and loving people. And I don't know, I feel like that's kind of makes it almost simple, instead of just complicating things so much. And that's how, like, we have wars and we have all these different factions and things. I feel like we all kind of want the same thing. We just want to be accepted, to belong somewhere, to be loved. And it's kind of like that principle of something that really helped me a lot. I think it was one of the cult experts, maybe Steve Hassan, that talks about like your authentic self. And that's something that cults strip away. And you get like your authentic self gets like unfrozen and like reprogrammed and then frozen back into their cult cookie cutter person. And now, like, I'm still discovering my authentic self. It's like I didn't even know what my favorite color was when I was in the cult, and then I was like, oh, I like purple. Now I know what my favorite color is.
No, that's awesome. I think it is. I guess it's a different time frame for everyone. I mean, it took me probably 10 to 12 years to figure out my own self. And I grew up that's why when people are always like, oh, you can't take the Scientology out of Marisa. And in my mind, I'm like, do you guys realize I went to public schools?
Right.
I am a product of inner city, non Scientology America. Yes, I did grow up with the Scientology aspect, but I know how screwed up mainstream America is. And, so that's why it makes me laugh when they try to act like they're high and mighty, where it's like, I can tell them, the non-Scientology part of me, you guys need to get your shit together. And of course, Scientology and the anti-Scientology movement needs to get their shit together as well. But this whole superiority thing that certain people have, where they're using us, and I know the feeling, I've been through it since I was a childhood, where they're making fun of us, like, you, myself, all of us, like we're
Yeah.
just, they're making fun of us. I think that toxicity has to end very quickly. It would be nice.
Yeah, I guess if you look at, they say consider the source, right? A lot of these people are just looking at you as this TV personality or something, just an exhibit, right? And you're a person, and it's just bullshit that they sit and do these videos about us and just delight in making fun of us. Like, they must feel really shitty about themselves. That's all I could say, for that. And yeah, I don't know. It's almost pathetic. It's like, go find a life,
Yeah,
if you don't want to learn.
I think it's the whole thing though of, with the whole war on drugs argument, who's more to blame, the supplier or the people demanding it? And when you think about it, it's the people that are demanding our content that want to
Mhm.
stare at us and dwell on it all day, and we're supplying it to them because they're asking for it. I'm one of those people where I kind of think the demanders and the viewers are a little more to blame. That's just my, you know,
Mm,
not everyone's going to agree, but I always just have a backwards way of thinking, sort of.
yeah.
So they
I
want
I
it.
just
It's like they want it. And so people
yeah,
are going to give it to them because it's a hot commodity.
right. This comment just caught my eye. I love this from Kristen F. I'm a materialist. Soon as all humans have food, clothing, shelter, and medicine, I'll worry about the God stuff maybe. I love that because yeah, when it comes down to it, it's like we could we can try to lord things over people and spiritualize them and all that, but it's like we all have the same basic needs. And if somebody can't be um compassionate and like yeah provide this is one thing I learned, Kristen, is like um there were so many people that were like not like in my cult, they wouldn't go and do any like outreach in the community. And that's really what churches and nonprofits, that's why they're granted nonprofit status, to help the community. And even the Bible, it says like that in the end, there's this judgment thing where it's like the sheep and the goats are separated, and the judge of the sheep from the goats was, I was a stranger. Like the sheep was like supposedly a good thing. Now it has a bad connotation, but it was like God's people, right? And it was saying, I was a stranger and you took me in. I was hungry and you fed me. I was, lonely and you held my hand, or whatever it was. And it was like, it says, in as much as you've done this unto the least of my brethren, you've done it unto me. So for me, I am very, like a more of a tangible type person. I like to roll up my sleeves and go to a soup kitchen and just help. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that was something that I always missed when we were sitting there praying all the time in our little cubicles in our bedrooms on our floor, laying on our face, crying out to God and praying and fasting. To me, that didn't feel like I was doing anything, you know, to help people.
That's interesting. So you were like born into this, literally,
Not
or
well,
from four
no,
years
because
old.
I was born into a kind of a you call it a heathenistic family. My mother was, I was out of wedlock and my mother had an affair. I think some of my story. And she passed away when I was 5 in a fire with my siblings, and I had a couple older siblings that were still living, and so I was just like tossed around from home to home. And I don't even know who had custody of me from the age 5 to almost 9, not 8.5. That's when I went into the home. So I was 8.5 and 9 when I was adopted. So that was really tough because I had no mental health, kind of like what you Scientologists go through, is like there's no like psychiatric help, because then that you're not having faith. At least in this church we were in, it was really frowned on. Like I came into that house like I was putting out my hair, I was wetting the bed. I never had any counseling, or I really needed help not to be thrown in a family with 10 kids, you know. So
That's great. That's tough. And I can tell you sort of downplay your situation a little bit, probably because you don't want you're sort of like me, you know. But
yeah.
you've been through some really rough things. You have.
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
we all
the
I
way
don't
you
know.
tell me about your story though, that's not easy. And um I do. I like asking you for help because I have no idea about Bible verses, and I know I could tell you anyone and instantly you'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's the," you'll just pop
I
up
don't know
and
if that's a good thing. I have a lot of useless
it,
information up here.
well, no, but like Scientology is useless information as well, but that's how we sort of understand each other. And
Yeah.
Bible verses are, to me, I don't understand. It's probably just like how you all don't understand L. Ron Hubbard verses. And
Yeah.
I hate to admit this, but I do understand them. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna puke every time I think of that. But hopefully it's something that gets lost from my brain. I don't think it will though. But that's good that we're able to translate the message and kind of tell each other the abusive aspects of it. And
Yeah.
I would like to see more. I wish there were more Marilyns that have the compassion and understanding that she does. Actually, maybe not, because she's the only
I'm a
one. But
mess.
no, I'm just joking. No, but no, but I do.
I'm a
I
lot.
think I'm really gracious for you, like helping me out with this, because it
Well,
helps
the same
things.
thing because I go to you and I'm like, "Oh my god, oh my," and then you're like, "You know what? That's not that big of a deal. It's okay. Like, it's not the end of the world. Like, thank you because I was a mess." Or like you're like, it's not that bad. You kind of like give me a perspective of, hey, I've seen worse, or like, okay, this whole thing with this whole community, you're like, you know what? This has happened before. This whole like people, kind of fighting against each other, and then there being sort of like a falling out, and then get back together, and then the thing with the whole movement is shifted so many times, and that gives me comfort because I'm like, okay, this will pass.
It's not going away, girl. Even if it shifts away from YouTube, and it might. YouTube is pretty new. It's only been maybe 2.5 years old, the way we know it with the
Right. Yeah.
Scientology activism scene. But wherever it morphs into next, those of us that hang around will be able to adapt to it. And
Sure.
I just, I think we could be a powerful force if we all focused on the same thing instead of focusing on whatever, and people are going to get mad when I say, minuscule things, but it's like, hey, unless if you were a victim of whatever happened in this movement, repeating this 50,000 times a day to me, I'm honestly like, I understood the first 20,000 times what's going on. Repeating
Right.
it another 20,000 times, that's not helping yourself. It's not helping me. You're kind of stifling and stagnating the whole anti
Mm.
Scientology movement.
Yeah.
So we're not idiots. We're not kids. We should
Yeah.
all just rise to the occasion and realize we're in the same battle and
Yeah.
stop. I don't know. I wanted to talk to you though about, yeah, just the stigmas, and because I'm feeling a lot of hate, and it's a hate I haven't felt in a long time. Um, and I guess as a final word, whoever are, if there are, the radical evangelicals, wait, I'm not a Satanist. We're not
Mm.
Satanists. I don't know one ex-Scientologist that's a Satanist. We grew up with a weird dude named L. Ron Hubbard. Most of us don't like him. And we realize it's bullshit. And it would be great, like, if we could have some sort of dialogue with each other instead of a constant battle.
Mm.
That's sort of my plea, but I don't know if you think that would ever happen.
So you're feeling like there's people in this community or kind of on the outskirts that are like throwing shade at you for your past in Scientology, and like you're saying like that they're self-righteous, like they're still
There's a whole group of them. Yeah, and I don't want to say their names, but
right. No,
they're
because we
all
don't
like
want to give them any yeah, I wouldn't give them any
but they're all
popularity.
like radical evangelicals, born again Christians, and Christian fundamentalists, and they're all congregating to each other, and they're releasing. Luckily, they have a small following, but I've been watching them for a few months, and I'm like, I know what you guys are up to. You all are doing this because you think we're this evil antichrist cult community, even though we are ex-Scientologists and we think Scientology sucks, but I've been made fun of by these people before, and I know what they're doing, and they're using us to. I guess it makes them feel better about themselves by tormenting ex-Scientologists
Yeah.
because they don't believe. They think that Scientologists don't believe in Jesus Christ. That's the
Mm.
whole thing, and that's what I grew up. That's what I grew up with from the '80s, growing up in Scientology with radical evangelicals and Christian fundamentalists, they think Scientology is satanic. So we're automatically like banished from society from them. But we're
Mm.
not satanic. Like I am not a satanic. I knew from the time I was a kid that Scientology is stupid. So that's what I mean. That's why I'm like, why does there just has to be, I think, a social barrier that's broken between both sides. And I hope maybe this might freak them out because they're gonna be like, oh my god, that's Marisa, the left-handed chick with the black hair. And
I didn't know you're left-handed.
yeah, oh, yeah, no, I've been the
That
left-handed. But
that is so old-fashioned about I've heard of I have, a son my son Carter is left-handed, and, he said I think it was, like, he heard from one of my relatives or something, was like, back in the day, they would, like, try to cast out a demon of, like, left-handedness or something, like, as if that was bad. And yeah, there's so many different things from that whole like witchcrafty,
I went through it. Like
witch hunt type thing.
my mom put me in a preschool when I was like, I remember it because she thought, because my parents were raised Roman Catholic, even though they were into Scientology, my mom thought, oh, if I put her into Catholic daycare for 2 days, this will be a high quality daycare. And I'm left-handed. And I remember the next day, my mom was like, so what did you learn in school? And I was like, well, they taught me to um preach to Jesus so that I won't burn in hell with Satan. Like this is the 80s. So it was a little kind of extreme back then, but they were trying to
Right.
like put my hand down, my left hand down so I would write right-handed, and I experienced a little bit of that. Like got the tail end of it. And
Yeah, the way you say it though, it was like that sounds crazy too. It's like, oh well, I'm gonna go to hell because I'm left-handed. It's like, yeah, it's so funny because anything that you could say in Scientology, like some of the crap that I believed that I was taught a little bit crazy too, you know? So who's crazy is more crazier. I don't think there is a comparison,
I
you
don't
know?
think there is too, although I have to say the Benny Hinn movies are or videos are absolutely hilarious. Like
Oh
our
my God.
Scientology movies are nothing, or the videos, you don't have like the healing
Yeah.
telethon.
There's
And
a
that
video
I think
I
they're
watched.
amazing.
I think it's like less than a year old, maybe 9 months old. It's on here on YouTube. It's like if you look up The Rise and Fall of Benny Hinn, and it was this man who his family was like basically, destroyed because of this whole health and wealth kind of prosperity doctrine where his family was just giving him money and money and money and money and destroyed his family. And so he was exposing him and he was like playing clips throughout the years. You could see like as a younger man, and even now he keeps saying he's going to abandon that whole like fake healing thing. He kind of admitted to some of it, but some people thought they were healed and then they ended up dying, and he was still saying they'd been healed. And I'm like, no. It's just
My
crazy.
dad told me he went to a Benny Hinn convention that he didn't know about, like because my dad shattered his ankle in a motorcycle accident. And my uncle on my dad's side was like, "Oh, Benny Hinn," because they are popular amongst like the old school Mexican kind of communities, Latino communities back in the 70s. So my uncle was like, "Go with me to this Benny Hinn convention," and my dad said he went, and Benny Hinn did his thing, and everybody fell backwards. But I guess my dad's like, "Yeah, my ankle still hurt." He's like, "I didn't feel anything different." So,
Oh
but
yeah, and they would just tell you that you lack faith. They'd be like, "Oh, ye have little faith." I've heard that so many times because they'd be like, "Oh, if you had enough faith, you would be healed. You had the faith to move mountains." So it was always like you, like kind of like you pulled it in, right? That was our version of you pulled it in. Like you don't have enough faith. Sorry, no soup for you.
Benny
That's
Hinn is one rich dude. That's all I know.
oh
His
yeah.
his whole family estate is. Did I tell you about that guy Murdoch? I think his name's Michael or Richard Murdoch, and he did this whole thing, and it was like planting seeds. So if you send me a $20 bill, it's like a seed,
seed
And
of
then
faith.
he'll mail you back something, but you have to plant more dollar seeds to do
Yeah.
it. That's the funniest
Yeah,
ones.
sometimes they would, like, bless a handkerchief and be like, ask, like, oh, there'd be these elderly, like, widowed women on, on Social Security, fixed income, and sending them, like, hundreds of dollars, and they get a handkerchief.
Who
And
gets
yeah,
all the money though? Like the I guess the congregation or whatever, like Donnie Swagger, they oh
yeah,
my goodness.
I
And
know.
you grew up with
I remember
all of
having
this.
I remember having this little necklace that had, like, a mustard seed on it. It was supposed to be, like, faith. If you have faith like a mustard seed, how small they are, you can move mountains. So it was, yeah, it's crazy.
I
But
can't imagine you being like this. I don't know why, but it
I was
seems
always slightly embarrassed. Like, I did not like the whole slay in the spirit thing. And I saw Hef said something about, oh, Hef said, funny note, none of the larger women were ever slain in the spirit, only the skinny ones that the deacons could catch. I've
no,
seen.
I can tell you're embarrassed though, and I feel the same embarrassment. I can tell some when you do your shows about this that you're like wanting to laugh, but you're like, I don't want them to know, but this is absolutely, and that's when I make my videos too about Scientology, where I'm like, this is so ridiculous, but I have to
Yeah.
act serious because, and act serious about how batshit nuts it is, and it's really kind of
Yeah,
a
'cause I don't
hard.
wanna offend anybody because I did believe it, I don't know, I don't but yeah, it is crazy. But I don't
Girl,
wanna
I
offend
mean, and
anybody.
I that's why I wish that evangelicism or not whatever. Is it
Evangelism.
evangelism? Oh
Or
my goodness.
evangelicalism, there's that too.
Don't ask me to, like, yes, evangelicalism
Well, ism, yeah.
and everything else. It's really foreign to a lot of us Scientologists, but I know Scientologists are foreign to like evangelicals. So it's like we both think we are these crazy freakazoids. And there has to be a way to sort of understand, maybe, that we're both freakazoids, but just in a different way. Maybe. Do you think that's possible?
I would hope so because as far as I'm concerned, this is your space,
Like,
We're, like
I am just like, hey, because
we've
I'm
been
not,
invited into it, you know?
like I said, I'm not approaching it from a Chris Shelton viewpoint where I'm like, I'm an atheist and blah blah. I would never say that because I think that's extremely disrespectful. I'm approaching it from like, I just don't know. Like, what? Tell me, like, what? I've never been exposed to biblical stuff, very minimal, and it would be nice to sort of know how it works and what they think. And I understand why Scientology has a really shitty stereotype. Trust me. Oh my god. But it's hard to do that when there's like a group that thinks that we're like Satan and bad and like crazy and
Yeah.
like, well, we're just trying to share our stories. Yes, some of us may have extramarital affairs and we may have sex more than most people, but nobody has sex more than evangelicals.
Evangelicals, they just hide it because they're very, like,
That's what
pent
I
up
would
and
think.
frustrated, right? Because there's so many rules to it. So, and you look at these, like, really well, all the televangelists we were talking about, that ended up having scandals and like Jim Baker and Jimmy Swagger. Oh my God, when that was exposed that he was with a prostitute, I'm like, I could not believe it because he was supposedly so perfect. And then you look at like a lot of the child SA that happens. It's so terrible. And even the Catholic Church, was prone to it for a while. So, and probably still is in some ways. So it needs to be, yeah, it needs to be brought out, and nobody's better than the other, that's for sure. Nobody can really point fingers in that way. I just want to bring up a couple of comments if you want. I got like 34 starred, but this one caught my eye from Blow Drill. Hey Dylan, good to see you. People should try to understand. People should treat each other with respect. People should be kind and loving and open because that would make the world feel safe. I like that.
Flow drill is instantly blocked. No, I'm just joking. No,
Yeah,
I'm
we
just,
need
no, he knows I love him. Why did you ask that or say that?
Blow Drill.
I'm just fucking with
Oh, here we
No,
go.
I agree.
One more. I'll give him. I'll give him another because he does have a lot of wisdom. Here's the thing I've learned: should is always a trap. Yeah, shoulda, coulda, was, woulda. Is that how it goes? Things will never be exactly as we think they should be, and resisting this only causes us pain. Yeah.
That's true. And for a blow drill type of guy, he has a lot of expert knowledge. Sometimes where I am just like, he has to repeat it to me 3 times for me to understand, but then I do. Like, he really does make people think, and I know he's a deep thinker guy, but what you have to realize about us former Scientologists, most of us are deep thinking people because we're thought to kind of be
Very
like that.
intelligent. I found all that I've met be very, very intelligent and deep thinking. Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, can you put that in layman's terms?
Yeah, we have to do this stupid thing. I'm gonna get up really quick, but it is really stupid, honestly, that we even have to do shows like this.
I'm gonna put up something. Oh my God, Ellen, thank you so much for do my little seal clap. I'll sing while she's going. It's raining cups, hallelujah! It's raining cups,
It's raining
amen.
cups.
It's raining cubs. Look, I got 20 memberships.
I think of a different type of cubs usually when you do your show,
I'm so goofy.
but I think it's funny, like his. Oh my gosh, Marilyn, you have the best show, and
No, it's
I
just so
like
silly.
the way that you're like, and I'm trying to get like my hair out and stuff. And we
I
could
love
just
your
talk
hair.
and bullshit about this, but it's something that needs to be talked about because I don't understand why are they judging us and repeating trauma? They say that it's helping them heal themselves, but it's really not. Like replaying our sadistic things that we're doing that they may not necessarily do. How is that helping them? I don't think it is.
So you mean like your trauma is being paraded by these people that think you're
Yeah,
satanic?
or well, they do. I mean, I know they do. Like they think we are sort of like a forbidden fruit that they get to watch. So they're like, yeah, they know they're not supposed to because I know a lot of born again Christian people. They're not supposed to be watching us, first of all. They're not supposed to be watching our sexual endeavors. They're not supposed to be thinking about it and dwelling on it and fantasizing about it, but they're doing it anyways. So I think the anti-Scientology community is sort of like a forbidden fruit for some of these people, and they're watching us because it's again, they're not supposed to.
Mm.
So I guess my question is what how are they helping themselves by rewatching our videos over and over and over again? They're obviously upsetting to them, whether it's somebody having an affair or somebody going to a trip, doing things they shouldn't do, and they watch them 500 times over again. And I'm like, how is this conducive to any woman's mental health? It's beyond
Well, I
me.
was
I
just
don't
gonna say
know.
that. I don't know if it's religion as much as it is a mental illness or something, because that sounds like obsessive. That's like if you're watching this over and over and over. And I've seen, not mentioning names, but I've seen some, trolls in particular, where they are so fixated on one topic, one person in your community, meaning the ex Scientology community, and trying to go on this witch hunt to see who's responsible for this person and what happened and all this. And it's like, you're not even a victim. Shut the fuck up and go get a life. Like
Yeah, I'm
sometimes
thinking that
people don't even want
too.
your help. Not
I
that kind of help.
I mean, I think it too, because that's what I was trying to understand with you is like, is this an evangelical thing? Is this just a like I'm screwed up in the head human
Yeah,
being thing?
yeah.
Because I
It's
don't understand people that would do that. Like if okay, auditing is traumatic to me, so I would not sit there and watch people get auditing drills over and over again on
right,
YouTube. And
right.
and which something that's something that happened to me directly. So these
Mm,
people that whatever their trauma is, they're claiming that we've bestowed upon them. It's never happened to them directly, but they're watching it over and over. And
Yeah.
I don't understand. Is this like an evangelical type of trauma therapy?
Not that I know of. It's I mean, it could be kind of this self-validating, maybe holier than thou thing, But I feel like if you're not invested in this community, kind of sitting back and just judging everybody, making videos over and over and over and over and obsessing about it, and then not even using your real name or whatever, I think I don't know, it could be clout chasing with this obsessive compulsive thing, mixed with the grandiose ideas of what Christians should, be able to lord over people. I don't know. It's like, yeah, there's a supernatural kind of thing to it. There's a superiority thing, but I think a lot of the people you're referring to are kind of mentally ill, honestly. And unfortunately, some of this real extreme kind of Pentecostal, evangelical, prophetic stuff can empower people. Like I told you at the beginning, something very triggering to me, and unfortunately, I've seen some ex-Scientologists do it too. Is like they find something that works for them, and I've done it too. It's like pushing it on other people, or like now if somebody finds God, and now it's like, well, God told me I'm right and you're wrong. Well, my God told me I'm right and you're wrong. So who's this? Who's to say who's right and who's wrong? You know what I mean? So I think people need to be, like Bojo said, more accepting of other people's ideas of what's right for them.
Yeah. And I knew that before all of you. No, I'm just messing with you. I'm totally messing with Blow Drill. I'm like, I knew this before Blow Drill. And he knows I'm joking. I'm totally joking. But
I want to hear. I'm going to put this out. I'm going to put this question out that you just asked too, because there's some ex-Pentecostals in here. We've got my friend AB. She goes by AB, Analytical Blarney. I'm going to understand this. Unfortunately, this was like an hour ago, hour and a half ago. But yeah, she definitely understands this. And they're both ex-Pentecostals. So let's talk about sex.
no, but you know what I want to ask really quick? Do
Yeah.
Pentecostals think Scientologists are Satanists? That's a good question. I think
never
they
thought
do.
that. The only thing that I would think as far as the roots goes is how it can be traced, it's part of it, to black magic with Jack Parsons and all that, right? That's only maybe part of it. But as far as Satanism, I would look at it more of like well, yeah, Pentecostals boil everything down to God or Satan. It's very black and white. It's like
We would be
everything's of the
Satanists.
devil.
Scientologists are Satanists.
Even like, you can't listen to rock music because that's of the devil. So any other thing, even Islam, would be of the devil because it's not blessed by God. So it's very elitist, at least in my background. But what do you think? Anybody who is ex-Pentecostal here?
No, I want to know
Yeah.
because I think it's interesting, and I'm not judging to be like, oh, you Pentecostals are dumb. I think it's fascinating hearing them say that we think we are satanic because I'm like, why? Because we are the dorkiest, dumb bullshit. Whatever L. Ron Hubbard did with Jack Parsons was way beyond our time. And that's back when L. Ron Hubbard was doing LSD and weird shit, like back in the
Yeah.
40s. Like that happened way before our time. We did not grow up in a satanic cult. I just want to break the stereotype about us.
I don't know who the tribe of Dan is. Entire tribe of Dan. Wow. That must not have been in my Bible. I don't remember that. Could be in there's extra books that I haven't read. But I like this from Sophie. Hey Sophie, we got lots of friends in here. Some of them are spending their lives watching SPTV and now sound like wannabe Scientologists.
He's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, there are wannabe Scientologists. They're funny. Oh my God. It's like who would want to be a Scientologist? But there really are. You'll notice it when Blow Drill knows if you want to be Scientologist. He's seen them. It's people that were not in Scientology, but they start acting like they are to act like they're one of us. And it's like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to act like one of us? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people just, again, want to belong, and they see that as something fascinating or different, interesting. I don't know. And then I hear people like using the terminology and all that. It's like, oh yeah, that's just a little cringe. No. Like, you were the first one to say, "Don't call yourself a never in." I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. You're
Yeah,
right.
it just sounds weird because it's like 99.9 of society, 99.9999% of society are never ends. So identifying yourself as a never end, we're like, we kind of know you're not going to be a never end. And
Well, and a lot of people are, well, we were in something, maybe not in Scientology, but we're,
I think it's
always
just
in
like
something.
I have a weird thing with virtue signaling and people wanting to project themselves of like I'm a never end. I just it does, it bugs me a little bit. It's like, why announce it? Why do you have to feel like you have to put attention on yourself for something like that when you don't need to? Just be
Yep.
yourself and
Just a
stop
person.
seeking recognition and attention.
Yep, exactly. Hey, he was here. It's been a little while ago. I'm so behind on my starred questions, but good to see you, Alicia. Jim Norris says, for the longest time, I actually thought her name was Diannetex. Me too. Until like very shortly, and then I met you. I'm like, oh, okay. Pronounced like, oh, Diannetex. I never
Yeah,
put
no,
two
my
and two
name is
together.
it's Marisa. There's another Marisa, I
It
guess,
was
which
it was so perfect. Oh, I love it. Cheryl is here. Oh, she told her story on Aaron's channel. Did you see it?
I
I
did. I
cried.
watched it. I sent her a
Yeah,
message too. I'm like, much love to Cheryl.
I love
Woo!
her.
She is the
Cheryl,
coolest hippie UK
love
like
her.
LA hybrid woman I've ever met in my life.
She is the best. Freaking love her. She's awesome. I got to go back and watch the whole thing because I was kind of running around. I was listening in the car and I was crying.
I just hope
Oh,
my main message for this is I hope we can get on the back, right on the back tracks of protesting Scientology. Yeah, you know what? I don't think there is one second gen that is trying to say I am a morally pure individual.
right.
Okay. And as far as Aaron goes, we all know his story. We know it 50,000 times. And there are people from different countries that are like posting it. Like, let's do the Columbia story, and to me, it looks extremely ridiculous. I'm sorry, from a Mexican American standpoint, people that are repeating this over and over and over again 5,000 times. What Aaron does is extremely common in American society, whether you like him or not. It's extremely common. He's not doing daredevil, P Diddy things. And the one person calling him out, using the R word, I want to tell you that that's not cool. And it's not okay that you're doing that. It's one thing to make little videos about someone and whatever. He's a womanizer and does things, but when you start bringing the R word into it, that's a different
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
And it's not okay. And it's the same group of evangelical Christian fundamentalists that are doing this. Streets brought these up in his video. He referred to them as the old grannies in their RVs somewhere. You people, you women, you need to stop doing this. And I have a policy for myself. I have a 28-year-old daughter. I do not insult people 28 years old or younger. I don't get involved in those battles because I think it's disgusting, because I'm old enough to be their mother. You women that are 70 to 80 years old
Yeah.
doing this, and we're old enough to be your children, I think you are disgusting women. You're disgusting human beings. And maybe you can explain the stereotypes and break them down on this this video I made with Marilyn. It's not okay what you all do. It's the majority of the world looks at you women as disgusting Karens, very neurotic, judgmental, racist, bigoted Karens. And that's what I would like to eliminate with this message.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, because anyone sitting on their high horse watching you guys and saying, oh, looking at your personal lives and picking you apart and, feeling like they're self-righteous, like, yeah, you're 70 years old. Come on, lady, just chill fuck out. Find something else to do, like, I'm in this community not because I'm trying to judge everybody and do videos over and over and over and over, but the same fucking thing. Like, yeah, things come up in this community. Like, I've gotten to where I'm very, I know a lot of people and I've talked to a lot of people. I pissed a lot of people off, but I'm trying to back off. I'm trying to like, do other things like other cults and other branch off like what we're doing right now. But it does affect my friends and things. So I do talk about still the stuff that's going on in the community, but I'll deal with it, do maybe 1, 2, 3 videos tops, then I move on. I'm not going to go for fucking months and months and months and months and then just try to do these aha things to people and be so fucking obsessed, like where I can't think or do, or I can't do any videos about anything else, and I can't think about anything else. Like, I mean, I have tons of videos about me. Like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, I gotta find out from other people. They tell me what I'm thinking instead of my own thoughts. It's insane, like just trying to drudge things up from my past. Like I told you, trying to find my buttons, and my kids are definitely my buttons. It's just so horrible to be bringing people's kids into it. Hate that.
But don't let them push your buttons. Like, you don't need to let them push your buttons, and you don't even pay attention to people like that. And you'll get there. Like, I don't even pay attention to any of them, and your life will go back. So your life will be so much smoother. I used to pay attention to people like that, and it brings you into a toxic level where you feel insecure and you have to do this and that. But once you learn how to cut that off, it's nothing to you, and you're almost there.
Yeah. There's Maria, the goddess, Maria from Greece. The Greek goddess, right? Marisa, please. This is the scandal. Sects. Yeah.
No, she's oh my God, Maria.
She's so funny. I love her.
If I hung out with her, she would probably teach me a lot of interesting things. That's all I have to say.
She's very cool. Well said, Marisa. Philosophy. His cheating is between him and the woman involved, no one else. People need to mind their own business. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, honestly, there's so many things that I've inadvertently been dragged into that I really don't. It's like, guys, it's not my business. Like, I don't want to know what people do behind closed doors. I don't want to be dragged into it. It's just awful. Yeah, a lot of men with those traits. You're right. Like you said, there's a lot of men with those traits. That's how it is. Yeah. All right, we've got some more. Let's see if we have any questions. I'm going to go through some of these, if that's okay, because I know we've been going for a while. Wow, over an hour and a half.
I know.
Okay. Sorry. Hab says, I used to laugh my ass off when the old ladies hit the floor and their dresses flew up and everybody got a glance at their girdles, slips, and pantyhose when they're getting slain in the spirit. You know what that is, right? They push you back. Oh yeah, like Benny Hinn does.
I've seen that.
He was like assaulting people. Yeah.
Benny Hinn is crazy. He's not even, I think he was born in India too. That's the crazy part.
Really? Yeah, when someone is claiming to be the voice of God, I'm like, no, it's a cult. Yeah. Red flag, that's for sure. I still get a little triggered by it, but I'm learning not to, Like, I'm like, okay, you know what? That's not true. Like, nobody can say that God's speaking to them and they're right and you're wrong. It's like, I don't know. Bringing God into it, I think that's just kind of like, I don't know. It's not a level playing field. It's not fair.
I think it's using God as a form of self-righteousness. Like,
Yeah.
it's humans trying to
The
get high
weapon.
up of their self-righteousness.
Yeah, it's like a weapon. I grew up in church and kids still can. Yeah, there's a. I think I sent that to you. There's a website or a, what is it called? Um.
You got
Something
all the
about
Benny
harvest.
Hinn connections, girl. You got like the double. What is it called? The 07. What is that? 700 Club.
Oh, the 700 Club.
Did you
Yes.
used
Oh my
to
God.
watch that?
Yes, my mother used to watch it all the time.
Oh my
That and Jimmy Swaggart.
girl, that's how I do. I'm like, you have like everything that from an American watching all that crazy shit from a Scientology kid perspective. And I would
Mhm.
watch all of that 700 Club, Jimmy Swaggart, and I'm like, these people are on a different magnitude of Scientology, but they're a little bit crazier,
I
sort of.
know. There's so many freaking levels to it. I'm
It's
just
just
looking
a
up this.
different way. It's a different way.
I think it's called Ready to Harvest, and it breaks down all the different terms and denominations and sects and all that, and just in like 2-minute videos. I really like this one. Let's see if I can pull it up here. So if anybody's interested in learning, but I thought this guy is pretty accurate about a lot. Some of it, maybe not, but it's called Ready to Harvest, and he talks about North American Baptists. He's pretty even-handed, pretty neutral about things. He just kind of gives the information. Secret denominations. There's some about evangelicalism, like what is evangelicalism, Western Christianity versus Eastern Christianity. Someone who's really good to talk to about this kind of stuff is Mark Turi. He's an ex-Scientologist, but he's also a scholar and he knows a lot about this.
Oh yeah, I've heard about him before. He knows a lot about it, and it's just interesting growing up in like Scientology with, again, people need to realize we didn't grow up on it because we wanted to.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I
I want you to know that you have thousands of people that are on your side, and fuck these old ladies that are, throwing shade at you and judging you and making you feel like you have to defend yourself. You don't have to defend yourself because you're actually speaking out against it. So it's just so stupid to be picked apart like that. And this is your place. You should feel safe, and fuck those bitches. That's all I could say.
and yeah, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe right now. I'm just I don't
Well, what
feel
are they
safe.
gonna do? Hit you over the head with their rollers or something? Their feather duster.
Well,
Their
hopefully there
Bible.
can be an understanding though, because I do understand. I see them from a mile away. They're okay. Scientologists are weird and we stand out, but they stand out because it's like, wow, you guys are the dorkiest people on the planet. That don't I mean, I see them all the time complaining about how Los Angeles they like things are translated in Spanish. And I'm like, okay, it's Los Angeles. This is how it goes. And so it's very easy to tell that
That's
like
pretty racist. That's pretty xenophobic.
they're they're
Jeez.
li- they're living in another land of paranoia of yeah, they're afraid of, I know they are. I know their type. They're afraid of immigrants. They're afraid of pretty much everything that does not believe in what they do. And I grew up around them. So that's why hopefully some of them will step forward and they can address this issue of why they have so much hatred and bigotry and why they are obsessed with repeating Scientology stories over and over again amongst themselves. When I know they're not supposed to believe in that, they're not supposed to force feed themselves with that,
No.
but they're doing it because they think it's a taboo and it's evil. And I know how they are and I know how they roll, and I'd like to know why they're doing that to themselves.
Well, some of them are really obsessed, like you said, with the scandals, and I know some of them smoke weed, some of them are just not perfect either, so what the fuck, you know? Like, just
It's fascinating to me. It's like, okay, so you guys have really screwed up pasts and you've done a lot of messed up things way worse than the Columbia trips going on. Let's talk about you guys, you know, and I'm not going to bring up what they're indulged in, but I know it's one of two things. American Christian fundamentalism, how did you describe it?
Evangelicalism? Is that what you're talking
Evangelicalism. Okay.
about?
Yeah, it's something that we should understand, and if we want to bridge something positive forward to humanity, the evangelicals should reach forward to us and describe why they think we're crazy, and then we can talk about why they're crazy.
They're crazy, yeah. There's a really good well, there's so many good comments, but I wanna bring a few of them up. Zebulon, hey there, glad you're here. I was raised a fundamental independent Baptist. Interesting. I think Susie was a Baptist. Oh, yeah, I'll put hers up too. And there are bullies from the pulpit to the pews. Good point. Bullies, they're yeah, like, I heard Doug say that, that the teachings of Scientology can breed people to have narcissistic qualities. Well, this evangelical kind of holier roller, holier than thou can breed bullies, can breed people that are self-righteous and hurt other people, look down on them, you know.
It's
And oh yes,
true.
Susan says, I grew up First Baptist. We never got excited about anything. Mark literally fell asleep and snored. Yeah, Baptists and Methodists are pretty even keeled, but when you add like the Pentecostal charismatic Christians, that gets crazy. Yeah. Hey, Mark Hardman, good to see you doing laundry. Got here as soon as I was folding this up. Awesome, glad to see you. Trolls know it's easier to deface a picture than to paint one. Good point. Wait, Adam. Yep. Yeah, I guess, if it makes you feel any better, I've heard so many people say that, especially in these YouTube communities and online communities, like even like no community is immune to this kind of bullshit with the trolls and all the fighting and all that. Even the atheist community, the archaeological community. Aaron just had Flint Dibble on talking about that. There's so much craziness. You add the internet and anonymity and people just throwing out their own opinions and then just attacking people and running away. It's fucked up.
No, I can imagine. It is in every community. It's toxic.
It really is. Yeah, Sophie, fear is the number one control tool. Absolutely. Yeah, people who tear others down are weak. Yep, this is all true. I mean, we're seeing it. People flock to the negativity, Buttercup 49, laughter is the best. It's a great technique to disarm bullies. Yep. I know. Sometimes I'll wear like silly hats just to kind of make fun of the situation because it's just so crazy.
Yeah,
I love your videos are so funny too. Or you give people little nicknames and stuff. So
oh yeah, I mean it's just it pops into my head. Okay, whoever Miss Vajayjay, which we know is vagina. It's like okay, we'll ruin that Miss J name now. It's Miss Vajayjay. It brings a whole new aspect into that. And she has a friend named Polly Alice, which I know she's afraid of polyamory, so I named her Polyamory, and they're gonna have to face that every day as these.
wait a minute. Okay, I don't even want to know who they are, but you're just saying Mrs. Polyamory and Mrs. JJ.
Yeah, so they like to talk about sex. I'm gonna teach them as like as someone raised in Scientology because they're using their evangelical hatred to make fun of us. So I'm gonna make fun of them because I know exactly how they roll and what they do. Let's talk about what they like to do, the reversed roles, and they won't. They're very scared of that. So that's the thing. We shouldn't have toxic people like that in this community, like Mrs. Vajayjay and polyamory, watching us like frothing at the mouth and salivating over our next sex stories. I find it like, you remember that movie
We're just
Deliverance?
laughing in the background.
Remember that
Oh, you
movie
can't see him.
Deliverance? It's that movie Deliverance in the background, and like Rob Zombie's Devil's Rejects.
I
It's
can hear the
people,
banjos. Yeah.
they do that, and that's what they remind me of, and they need to stop acting like that, or there's going to be a huge movement of people against them because their behavior, they're very intolerant, they're very racist, they
Oh,
are
yeah,
not
and when you try to
accepting of
mention their
almost
real name, they
anyone.
whine and try to YouTube and have the video, or blocked in whatever country they're in. It's like, okay, they can try to pick apart us completely. I'm saying us as in us creators, but yeah, they're just cowards. They're just cowards, but you can't
And
say
I
their
will
name.
say to the one that's like, this is not about America in Arizona. It's like, it kind of is when all you're watching is America and Arizona videos, SPTV Foundation. When you're fixated on us 99.9% of the day in America, it kind of does. Kind of falls back on you to understand American law and understand how things go in America, instead of thinking that we bow down to Austrian law, which I don't know anyone who's done that since World War II. And we all know who that guy
Right.
was. And I don't think we're going to go back there again. So some of these people need to just understand is they're not that intelligent. And it would be more conducive for us to have a, like I said, understanding universal approach to one another. There's no
Yep.
need for Scientologists and Christians to make fun of each other, because those of us that grew up in Scientology, we're way beyond that. We don't believe in L. Ron Hubbard. We never looked at him as a god. You, as
Right.
born again Christians and radical former fundamentalists, you don't need to watch us and make fun of us as a form of sadistic therapy. And I will
Yeah, you know something
continue
that
to
really
battle on
pisses me
this.
off? Well, people say like, "Oh, you can take the girl out of the trailer park, but you can't take the trailer park out of the girl." They say that about ex-Scientologists. "Oh, you can take them out of Scientology, you can do this." Like, what about you guys? You're a bunch of judgmental bitches. It's like,
Oh,
don't do that,
for
It's like,
everyone that gives like advice about Erin's sex life, I would say for each one of those women, and I say this as a former topless dancer, I can guarantee you each one of them, they have a few Johns under their belt and a few, they've done their fair share of things under the table, but they're obsessed with discussing us. They don't want to talk about their past. But see, that's where I come in handy, because I'm very good at targeting on people's past, because I'm very open about mine and I have nothing to lose.
yeah.
So,
I'm gonna look at a couple more of
but I
these.
hope this was I hope this is a conducive, um, you know, I want to I do want to understand why people think we are weird and bad people, because they put us in a corner, and it's like, what do you expect us to do except reciprocate the judgment and the bigotry back? And it would be great if we could get rid of all the harmful, you know, judgment,
Yeah.
bigotry, and hatred that's going on in this community from a biblical perspective, since they are trying to take over this stream in a biblical point of view.
Yeah. So AB says she has a really good point. Pentecostals don't think you're Satanist, you're just a sinner. Yeah, they're just like, everybody's a sinner, right? I clearly don't believe this. You just asked a specific question. Yeah, you're not Satanist. But some people, I mean, I was always told like everything was of the devil. Anything that wasn't like, ordained by our minister or Marlene or whatever, everything's a oh, she sent a whole bunch of super chats to you. Who You are precious. I adore you, Diane. Oh, it's actually Marisa, but she's Diannetex.
Um,
If we could show each other grace and understanding, the world would be an entirely different place. It's healing. Yeah,
I agree
definitely.
with you.
Mhm.
Absolutely agree. So
Yeah.
there's no need for hate and strife and making fun of each other because we have different weird cult. I mean, I don't see Scientologists doing that to the evangelicals.
Right, yeah.
I'm about to, though. I'm this close. I'm about to be like rage.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do
And,
it.
you know, and AB's right, like, this has nothing to do with evangelicalism, like, it like, the people that are lording that over you, like, they're not even being true to the roots of that, you know? It's like, evangelicals are supposed to be spreading good news, not bad news, and not, you know, being judgmental. So, it has nothing to do with just yeah, they're just being Rodneys. I'm so confused on why this is being compared to what's happening. I think it's maybe it's because some people that are attacking Marisa and some of the other ex-Scientologists are either I don't know what are they evangelicals? I'm not sure where they're coming
Well, they're
from.
using us, evangelicals and Christian fundamentalists. They think we are antichrist cult victims, and I grew up with this from my childhood, so I know exactly what they think. They think that ex Scientology kids that we are like Satan's spawns and we're demonic, basically. So they judge us, and they're still watching us, and they're making fun of us. And we're not satanic kids. We grew up in a really shitty cult that most of us question our parents' sanity for raising us in that. Um, so we're not Satanist,
Yeah,
in this.
like I said, I think it's less about their religious background and more about like I think there's a major mental illness going on with those particular people, you know, and they're almost to be, I would say, to be pitied because it's like, you know, most real believers wouldn't act like that, you know, if they really believed in like grace and love and all that, you know, God is supposed to be love. So, yeah.
I would just like to be loved by most of society, and I know most of society is Christianity, and I would hope all of you Christians out there know I'm not an atheist. I'm someone that I really have never been exposed to any form of Christianity, the Bible. So I'm not coming at it with a hateful point of view. I'm just giving it an unbiased point of view as someone where I'm like, I don't know. So I hope there's some dialogue, but having hateful dialogue with us and making fun of former Scientologists like we're evil piece of crap Satanists for having extramarital affairs, when I think the evangelical crowd has they have more extramarital affairs on probably a 10-to-1 basis than Scientologists. So there has to be like a common ground where we can basically understand each other.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes a form of major hypocrisy, and it's a joke. That's why people like
Yeah, the
me.
emphasis on sex is, oh my God, it's a little much. Yeah. It's funny. This is a reference to they used to play music like worldly music backwards to scare us as a kid because it's supposedly satanic. Kristen F says, we need to play the stream backward when it's over. It's supposedly to like because they used to hide messages backwards on the records. So they would
Oh
like
no, I remember that. There's like,
that's
if we could
hilarious.
just understand each other, and I know it's easy
Yeah.
for us to understand each other, but I think they don't want to. I think it's hard to understand people that have an instant hatred towards you, you know?
Yeah,
And
it's not fair. Yeah, Sophie says we also know who the original colonists are. Oh, colonialists. Okay, got it. It's my homeland. The UK looks like some of them still got that arrogance. Yeah, good point. Did I lose you?
no, I'm here.
Okay. Let's turn your camera off. I'm winding down. Just have a few more. AB, Jim Baker, and Tammy Faye. Thanks for being a member. I'm just reading off some of these till she comes back. Old Frizz, in UK, we don't have those TV evangelists. It just cracked. Oh, you don't? Oh, I thought you did. Because someone told me their father was one. I thought, but maybe not. Mm-hmm. Susie, every denomination thinks they're who's right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Krista, you're hilarious. Holy water, squirt gun. For the whole chat, comment down, sinners. Thank you, Buttercup. You ladies are very insightful, especially when all the BS starts happening. Yep. A lot of BS has been happening, huh? Charles
Can you
Manson.
hear me?
You got to see this comment. Marisa, Charles Manson makes more sense than Hubbard. Lines like that is why I love her.
Oh, he does. He totally does. Charles Manson, like, I can read his things. Can you see me?
No, I can't see you, but I can see your camera thing. But I can hear you. You can talk. Oh, I lost you. Oh, word. Okay, I'll read. I think she can still hear us. So, AB, true evangelicals just think you're sinners. Sorry, they're coming at you. Oh, I'll bring you back up. You ready? I'm just reading this. True evangelicals just think you're sinners. Sorry, they are coming at you. I'm the first to attack them, but it has nothing to do with the religion and more to do with buttholeology, right? Yeah, it's
I
funny how
just don't
people can use
understand, like,
religion.
this is what I want to know. Like, why do they think we're satanic? Like, what is it about us? Like,
I
why?
think it's just a weird obsession because I don't think that. Okay, let me really ponder this. So, um, I haven't heard a Christian say that Scientology is satanic.
Oh my
They just
God,
think
I
they're
have it
lost.
5 million times growing up.
Really?
Um, yeah, because they don't believe in Christ. So any belief
Yeah.
system that doesn't believe in Christ is sort of
Okay.
like satanic, you know? And I always thought it was funny because in my mind, I'm like, I'm not growing up in the Church of Satan, you know, like the Anton
Yeah.
LaVey, cool, like big rings and Dracula suits and shit. Like, we didn't
Well,
have that.
there's
And
kind of a difference between sinful and worldly, which is, I think, what most evangelicals would consider other religions or people that don't believe in Jesus, that they're sinners and they're worldly. But satanic, like for me, it was like anyone who engages in like witchcraft, which I don't think I want to consider Scientology witchcraft. It's just like a self-help with a little dose of like alien beliefs and control. It's a cult, so yeah, I don't know. I guess they would consider like what happened in like Jonestown to be satanic because that was just so awful, but yeah, I don't even put it on yourself. It's just these crazy people have
you're
nothing
a
better to
nice
do.
lady, Marilyn. You're a nice former Christian lady that understands things because they don't, like,
Not
seriously.
always nice.
We're like Satan. So that's how I know, like, because I've dealt with it, and they really think we're like crazy people
It's
and we're
just
evil.
it's one of those things where like to try to get it's like a psyop, it's like get you to be like, okay, kind of like the body Satan thing. Like I was always told that everything was like a demon. Like you have a demon of rebellion and a demon of harlotry, which is called Jezebel. And this is a demon of that. And it's like you didn't know whether the thoughts in your head were yourself, like your sin nature, like your old, like it was an old man and a new man, the spiritual man supposed to be the new man, or if it was God, or if it was a demon. It was like getting me to look within and hate myself, loathe myself because I was like so evil and so sinful and just rebellious and not godly, and I was going to hell. And that's how I felt even when I was quote doing everything right, you know.
That's crazy. That's like, honestly, your lifestyle upbringing sounds crazier to me than Scientology. It really does.
Scientology is pretty crazy too, but we're all learning, we're getting there.
Well,
Visit the
no,
Christian
thank
God.
you. I want to thank you for the time to, like, kind of wade through this, because I think it might be something that's more than a one show
Yeah,
thing, because it's
and
kind of having to dissect like each other's, and I'm not putting down what you believe in. It's like we're both able to make fun of
I
like, oh
don't
my
even
God, you.
honestly, honestly, Marisa, I don't really even know what I believe anymore. I guess that maybe makes me a little bit agnostic, but like my husband, he was brought up in the Methodist church, which was kind of like just mainstream, like just they go to church on Sunday. They were kind of normal, but they were good people, but they didn't take it too far. They weren't too crazy about it. They gave maybe, 10% or whatever, but it wasn't like oppressive, right? And then he became like I met him in the cult, so he really wanted to like be used of God and do the right thing or whatever, find himself. And then now like we kind of both threw all of that off and just kind of started from scratch. And I still don't know what to believe, but he's been really into this whole like near death experience thing and like energy, and we're all connected, and he's really into that, like the whole like life review thing, all that. And I'm like, hey, there might be something to that, because I don't think this is it. I don't know. I really don't know. So I don't really judge people. I'm not like, oh, you're wrong, because I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I don't know,
No,
you
you're the
know.
first like sort of former evangelical person I've ever met that's had such a rational, balanced point of view about all of it, where you're almost, I don't want to say you sound like a Buddhist, but you're just so level headed and like grounded, where when I hear you talk, I don't really hear like, I just hear someone where you're like a universal spiritual person where you understand everyone's struggles. And
I guess I feel it, and I don't want to label anybody, I mean, and I know anybody watching this could be like, "Oh, Marilyn, she gets bitchy and spite," and I can get spicy and I can say things, but at the same time, I never want to make someone feel like they're not worthy of being here, or they're like, I I always try to give people, like, even when I was critical of Mike Rinder and Aftermath Foundation, I wanted to see things get better. You know what I mean? Like I never called anybody a piece of shit or unredeemable or Satanist. Yeah, I don't label people and just throw them out with the trash. And some people like who are criticizing me for being like throwing people under the bus, but then they want me to throw someone under the bus and throw them out with the trash just because they cheated on somebody. Well, I don't know. I don't throw anybody away. I don't throw anybody away.
well, to me, and I see that too. That's radical evangelicals doing that to you, and I see them doing. They're trying to do it to everyone, where they're like, everyone has to admit that they knew about so and so's sin, and we all have to confess and ask for forgiveness. And to you, weird evangelical channels that are doing that, and you're disguising yourself as cult healing channels, you chicks are insane, and you guys are still acting like radical evangelicals, and I can notice you a mile away, and you should just stop because you look stupid. You really do. um
Yeah, and just
you
hitting
know
below the
it's
belt and just calling names and being just fucking mean girls, like, it's just so gross. And a lot of them don't even, have a name or a face. It's just horrible.
Yeah,
They're
well, that's why I said I have a policy for myself. If someone is my daughter's age and she's 28 and younger, I don't even engage with them. I don't want to engage with people that are my daughter's age and fight with them. And a lot of these women are my mother's age and older, and they want to fight with us. It's most likely because they, I would say, did some things to their children that they shouldn't have done under their evangelical Christian rules, and they don't want to come out with it. So they make fun of us. That's my psychology. They like making fun of us because it gives them it makes them feel better about themselves for the shitty pasts that they are all hiding amongst themselves.
Yeah, and it's just so unfair because you guys have been through enough, and to just make fun of you and call you satanic, that's just unbelievable. Yeah.
And if they want to do it, they should just like come right out and do it, because I have so much, there's only one group of people that get made fun of more than Scientologists, and I would say it's radical evangelicals. They get made fun of way more than Scientologists. And, I don't know if they would like it if the tables were turned on them where everyone just starts making fun of them. But it's to that point where they can either join the fight, they can join the cause, and understand that we are former cult victims, or they can make fun of us. And if they continue to do so, I'm just going to have America make fun of them. And, you know, I don't want to do that. We shouldn't have to
Yeah,
go into little kitty factions
right,
like this.
right. Yeah, well, I think it's like, we're avoiding saying any names because I don't want to give them any oxygen because they sit around waiting. It's like they're salivating. They're going to watch this whole 2 hours and 9 minutes and 57 seconds just to see if say anything. And they'll be like, ha, ha, ha. They're jumping around like fucking Rumple fucking Stiltskin, It's just so gross.
Rumpelstiltskin. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I would say anyone. This is how I can tell the radical evangelicals. Like I said, they're obsessed with sex. Like, let's talk about who had sex with each other 1 year ago, and they'll talk about it 5,000 more times. And the rest of us have moved on 2 years ago, and they're still talking about shit that happened. Like,
Yeah. It's
so
insane.
it's sex. They have a big thing about sex, and I'll continue to drag it into them, and I'll start talking more about what they're specifically doing. And if one of them, if they decide to have a dialogue with me because they're in different countries, even though they constantly complain about how everything is America, but again, this whole YouTube scene is American based. It's how dumb these people are. Um, you know, we'll just have to get into it now, like then and there at that particular
Yeah.
time. They're idiots. They're radical fundamentalists. I can see that from a mile away. Their behavior is that of Christian fundamentalist, and it would be nice if they would stop because they are making more of a mockery of themselves than even the
Yeah.
Church of Scientology.
I love this comment from Tamber June. Hey there. When I was younger, I was told that God is love and love is what's important. When they stopped showing love and started showing hate, I checked out. Yeah, exactly. God's supposed to be love, not hate. Yeah, and I don't feel any hate in my heart. Like I'm trying to think like if I hate anybody. Well, Marlene Sweeney, my cult leader, put me through hell. I mean, I've heard she has cancer. I don't want anybody to suffer, you know. I mean, I do get upset and say things, but I don't dwell on it and I don't wish evil on anyone trying to like trip them up and ruin their life. Like this whole word destroy, it's not in my vocabulary, you know? Like I don't understand why people are just trying to destroy each other.
Yeah,
It's just
it's
so
weird.
much energy. It's just, negative energy. It's crazy. All right, I'm going down line. I guess we're all caught up. I think we have a lot of we had a lot of comments I skipped over. So if anyone had any questions or comments, just leave them in the comments below after the video, and I'll make sure you see them if anybody has any questions for you. So
No, and so I might have scared people off, like I said, because this is a dialogue where I'm like, hey, why do you guys that think that we are Satan think that we're Satan? Because we're not. And it's an uncomfortable conversation. So that's
yeah,
hopefully
I
there
think
can be a little bit of leeway.
It's definitely not all evangelicals. I know some Christians that are great people, they're not judgmental. So that's why I always start with whenever I'm talking about these fringe or sects or cults that are Christian based, that doesn't mean that they're Christians. Like they're not acting very Christian. And I don't label all Christians like that, So yeah, these are just I think they're also mentally ill, honestly, because they're exhibiting some very not normal behavior, and using God is even worse because it's just weaponizing Christianity.
Well, I can notice it. I can notice it myself, and I'm someone that was not raised in a Christian church, and I can notice the hatred and the bigotry and the discrimination coming from these certain groups, and they're using us as fodder to. They think we're satanic and we're different, and they're hanging around to make fun of different people and torment and traumatize us, and I actually think that's very twisted, and they they should stop. We all know
You know,
who they are, and it's
yeah,
gross.
something that my husband always says now, like he believes in, like I said, that the NDE stuff of the like universe and energy and all that. And he said that there's two major forces in this whole world, universe, whatever. There's there's love and there's fear. And fear begets things like hatred and war and all of the bad things, and love covers all of that. It's like a blanket. And I'm like, oh, actually that makes a lot of sense, because these people, a lot of them are fearful because they don't like themselves, and it's almost like projecting on other people, and it makes them somehow feel better, but it's some weird twisted thing. And yeah, it's much better to much easier and much more fun to love people than to hate, you know.
It
So
is
I
for
don't even know
sure.
why you would bother being here if you were just gonna hate on you guys. So Timber says, I
I
love you
agree
both.
with you, and I do. I want to. Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for our friendship. Very much. Hit that like button, squirt the like button with holy water. Buttercup, love this stream. Awesome. All right. Wow, we've been going for a while. So I'm gonna say goodnight to everybody. If you want to hang out for a minute, Marisa, we can say goodnight. But thank you everybody for being here. Please hit the like, and yeah, leave us some comments. I read them all, and I'll make sure Marisa gets any questions you may have. So bye. Thank you so much, Marisa, for being with us tonight. We got to do this again.
Thank you, Marilyn,
All
and
right,
I
we'll do
do
another
appreciate
stream
it.
soon.
I meant this as like a truly respectful dialogue. I just want people to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good night, everybody. Bye.